The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber groaned open with a sound that made Ambassador Marcus Webb's bones vibrate. He walked forward into the vast amphitheater that stretched beyond human comprehension, his simple black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast to the brilliant colors and impossible forms surrounding him. Above him, hundreds of alien species filled the curved galleries. Crystalline beings pulsed with inner light. Tentacled creatures floated in specialized atmospheric bubbles. Insectoid delegates clicked and chittered in languages no human throat could produce. The air itself shimmered with different atmospheric requirements, creating rainbow effects where various life support fields intersected. At the center of it all sat the High Chancellor, a towering being whose species had ruled the galactic core for 10,000 years. Its voice boomed through universal translators as Webb approached the judgment platform in the chamber's heart. Human representative, the Chancellor's words echoed with absolute authority. You stand before the Galactic Council as the voice of your species. Today we determine Earth's fate. Webb stopped at the platform's edge, appearing impossibly small against the backdrop of galactic power. Thousands of alien eyes focused on him. Representatives of civilizations that had mastered faster than light travel before humanity had discovered fire. The weight of their combined attention should have crushed any diplomat. Yet Webb remained perfectly calm. Honored Chancellor, Webb replied, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic design. I understand this council has reached certain conclusions about humanity's expansion into galactic space. A ripple of harsh sounds swept through the assembly. The spider-like Arachnus delegation hissed their displeasure. The gaseous nebula collective swirled with angry patterns. For months, reports had reached the council about human colonies appearing in contested systems. Human ships traveling routes that belonged to established civilizations. Human traders disrupting careful economic balances that had existed for millennia. The Chancellor's massive form leaned forward. Your species has violated 17 territorial agreements, ignored 43 trade regulations, and established colonies in 12 restricted systems. The Council has voted to contain humanity to your home solar system. Any human vessel found beyond your star will be destroyed. Webb nodded slowly as if considering the judgment with academic interest. Before you implement this decision, I must ask a question. Has this council examined Earth's historical records concerning our previous interactions with galactic civilization? Previous interactions? The Chancellor's tone carried confusion mixed with irritation. Your species achieved faster-than-light travel barely 2 centuries ago. You have no previous interactions with galactic civilization. Webb reached into his jacket and withdrew a small crystalline device. With deliberate movements, he placed it on the platform. The crystal began to glow, projecting a holographic display that made several delegates gasp in recognition. This is Hyperspace Junction Alpha 7, Webb announced calmly. Your historians record that the Vraxian Empire constructed it 6,000 years ago during their Great Expansion period. The projection shifted to show construction blueprints covered in symbols that predated known galactic script. In the corner of each blueprint was a signature that made the more knowledgeable delegates lean forward in their seats. These are the original construction plans, Webb continued. Note the design specifications and the authorization codes, all bearing the signature of the Terran Engineering Corps. The Vraxian delegate, a proud being whose people claimed the greatest architectural achievements in galactic history, rose from its seat with visible agitation. Impossible. That junction is our civilization's crowning achievement. We have detailed records of its construction. Webb's expression remained neutral. Your records begin with the activation ceremonies. They don't include the actual construction because your ancestors found the junction already built. They simply discovered how to operate systems they didn't understand. The crystal's projection expanded, showing dozens of similar structures throughout the galaxy. Each one bore the same human signatures, hidden in quantum-encrypted subsystems that had remained undetected for millennia. The reason your civilizations fear humanity's expansion, Webb said quietly, isn't because we're aggressive newcomers disrupting galactic order. It's because we're returning to infrastructure we built long before any of your species reached the stars. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted protests in hundreds of languages. The universal translators struggled to keep pace as accusations and denials filled the air. But underneath the noise, something else was growing. In the oldest archives of every major civilization were fragmentary references to the first builders, mythical beings who had vanished before recorded history began. The Chancellor raised one massive appendage for silence. You claim humanity built the hyperspace network that connects our worlds? Not claim, Webb corrected. State as historical fact. Humanity didn't discover faster-than-light travel 2 centuries ago. We rediscovered it. The gap in our history that your archaeologists call the Great Silence marks the period when humanity chose to withdraw from galactic civilization. The projection changed to show Earth's solar system, but not as the Council's scouts had reported it. Hidden structures became visible. Orbital installations that had been dismissed as primitive manufacturing facilities revealed themselves as something far more sophisticated. The question before this council, Webb continued, isn't whether to contain humanity. It's whether you're prepared for the consequences of declaring war on the species that built the foundation your entire civilization rests upon. As if summoned by his words, new displays activated throughout the chamber. System after system reported the same phenomenon. Hyperspace junctions that had operated flawlessly for millennia were now displaying warning messages in scripts no translator could interpret. The Chancellor's voice carried a tremor that hadn't been there before. What are you doing to our infrastructure? Webb smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Nothing. The automated systems are simply recognizing their original administrators. Every hyperspace junction, every communication relay, every piece of technology you've built on our foundation contains dormant protocols that activate when humanity faces an existential threat. The great doors of the chamber began to seal automatically. Emergency lights flashed as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Defense networks were locking out their operators. Trade routes were displaying navigation warnings in unknown languages. The carefully maintained balance of galactic civilization was revealing itself to be an illusion. You have condemned humanity to isolation, Webb said, his voice now carrying an authority that had been hidden beneath diplomatic courtesy. But you've forgotten that isolation was our choice, not our punishment. We withdrew from galactic affairs 50,000 years ago not because we were defeated, but because we were tired of ruling. The assembled delegates found themselves trapped in their own chamber with the representative of a species they had vastly underestimated. The council that governed thousands of worlds was discovering that their authority had always been borrowed from beings they had forgotten existed. Webb picked up his crystal and straightened his jacket. I suggest this council reconsider its judgment. Because if humanity chooses to reclaim our place in galactic civilization, we won't be asking for permission. Outside the chamber, across the vast complex that housed the galaxy's government, automated systems continued to display messages in the oldest language known to galactic civilization. Messages that roughly translated to one simple phrase, the builders have returned. 3 hours after Ambassador Webb's revelation, the Galactic Council chamber had transformed into a center of barely controlled panic. Emergency sessions convened as reports flooded in from every corner of known space. The carefully orchestrated civilization that had governed the galaxy for 10 millennia was discovering that its foundations were built on lies. Chancellor Morvex stood before the assembled delegates, his massive frame trembling with a combination of rage and fear. Around him, representatives of hundreds of species demanded explanations for phenomena that defied everything they thought they knew about their own history. Status report from all sectors, Morvex commanded, his voice amplified through the chamber's acoustic systems. The responses painted a terrifying picture. The Keltharian Syndicate reported that their quantum communication networks were displaying messages in an unknown script. The Zephyrian Trade Federation's cargo routes had been locked down by navigation systems that no longer recognized their authorization codes. Most disturbing of all, the automated defense platforms that protected the galaxy's most valuable systems were requesting new command protocols in languages that predated galactic civilization. Dr. Rachel Stone, humanity's chief xenoarchaeologist, stepped forward from the diplomatic gallery. Her presence in the chamber should have been impossible given the security lockdown, yet she walked with the confidence of someone who understood systems the aliens had forgotten existed. Honored delegates, she began, her voice cutting through the chaos with academic precision. The infrastructure failures you're experiencing aren't malfunctions. They're recognition protocols activating after 50,000 years of dormancy. She activated a portable display unit, projecting technical schematics that made the gathered engineers lean forward in disbelief. Every hyperspace junction in your territory contains quantum processing cores that your species have never been able to replicate. You've assumed they were artifacts left behind by unknown precursors. You were partially correct. The projection shifted to show the internal structure of a hyperspace junction, revealing computational matrices of impossible complexity. These cores don't just facilitate faster-than-light travel. They monitor everything. Every ship passage, every communication burst, every strategic discussion your civilizations have conducted in the vicinity of these junctions has been recorded and analyzed. Chancellor Morvex's voice carried a note of desperation. Recorded by whom? By us, Dr. Stone replied simply. When humanity withdrew from galactic civilization, we didn't abandon our infrastructure. We automated it. Every system you've built your societies around has been under human observation for 50 millennia. The chamber erupted in angry voices, but Dr. Stone continued with the methodical precision of a university lecture. Consider the Nebula War that ended 3,000 years ago. The conflict between the Astros Republic and the Void Consortium that shaped modern interstellar law. She manipulated her display, showing battle formations and tactical decisions from the famous war. Your historians credit brilliant military leadership and technological superiority for the Republic's victory. What they don't mention is that every major engagement was fought near hyperspace junctions that provided subtle navigational advantages to Republic forces. The Astros delegate, a crystalline being whose people had built their entire cultural identity around their military genius, began to pulse with distressed frequencies. You're suggesting our greatest victory was orchestrated? Not orchestrated, Dr. Stone corrected, guided. Humanity has spent 50,000 years carefully nudging galactic development along optimal paths. The Nebula War ended with the creation of interstellar law that protected smaller civilizations from aggressive expansion. That outcome served humanity's long-term interests. Chancellor Morvex struggled to process the implications. If what you claim is true, then our entire civilization exists at your sufferance. Dr. Stone's expression softened slightly. Your civilization exists because we helped it flourish. The galactic community you've built is remarkable. Hundreds of species working together, sharing knowledge, resolving conflicts through dialogue rather than warfare. That didn't happen by accident. The projection changed to show a time-lapse view of galactic civilization's development over the past 10,000 years. Trade routes that seemed to emerge naturally. Diplomatic innovations that appeared at precisely the right moments. Technological breakthroughs that occurred exactly when they were needed most. Every major advancement your civilizations have achieved was built on foundations we provided, Dr. Stone explained. But the creativity, the applications, the cultural developments that made those advancements meaningful, those came from you. We provided the tools. You created the art. Ambassador Webb reappeared at the chamber's entrance, his timing perfect. Behind him walked a small group of humans whose simple clothing contrasted sharply with the elaborate attire of galactic dignitaries. Yet something about their presence made the assembled delegates instinctively step back. Dr. Stone speaks truly, Webb announced as he approached the central platform. But she's omitted the most important detail. The surveillance and guidance protocols weren't established to control your civilizations. They were established to protect them. He gestured to his companions, and the chamber's displays activated to show sensor readings from deep space. The data was unlike anything the gathered scientists had ever seen, showing distortions in spacetime itself at the very edge of known galactic boundaries. 6 months ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected dimensional anomalies beyond the outer rim. Something is approaching this galaxy from outside normal spacetime. Something that has destroyed civilizations in other galactic clusters. The humans who had accompanied Webb stepped forward, revealing themselves to be specialists whose knowledge exceeded that of any alien expert in the chamber. An astrophysicist whose understanding of dimensional mechanics surpassed the Zephyrian Science Council. A military strategist whose tactical knowledge made the greatest galactic generals look like amateur theorists. We call them the Devourers, Webb continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, yet somehow carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Entities that exist partially outside normal reality. They don't conquer civilizations. They erase them, not just killing populations or destroying infrastructure, but removing all trace that those civilizations ever existed. Dr. Stone pulled up historical data that made several delegates gasp in recognition. The silent zones in your star charts. regions of space where stellar formation simply stopped, where quantum background radiation shows patterns that suggest entire systems once existed, but left no trace. Those aren't natural phenomena, Webb explained. They're the aftermath of devourer incursions. In the past million years, 7 galactic clusters have simply vanished from observable space. Our deep space sensors indicate this galaxy is next. The revelation hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. Their entire understanding of galactic history was crumbling, replaced by knowledge of threats beyond their comprehension. Chancellor Morvex found his voice after long moments of stunned silence. Why tell us this now? Why reveal your surveillance after 50,000 years of secrecy? Webb's expression grew grim. Because the devourers will arrive within 18 months. And because defending against them requires resources and coordination beyond what any single species can provide. We need the entire galactic community working together with full knowledge of what we're facing. He gestured to the chamber around them. This council wasn't created by accident. The governmental structures, the communication networks, the trade relationships that bind your civilizations together. They were all designed for this moment, when external threats required unified response from hundreds of species working in perfect coordination. Dr. Stone activated a final display, showing the true scope of humanity's preparation. Hidden weapons platforms throughout the galaxy, defensive installations disguised as commercial facilities, military assets that had been slowly positioned over millennia of careful planning. You declared war on humanity because you feared our expansion, she concluded. What you didn't understand is that humanity never stopped expanding. We've been preparing for this war for 50,000 years, and now it's time to begin. The chamber fell silent as the magnitude of the situation became clear. The species that had gathered to judge humanity discovered they were facing a choice between accepting help from beings who had manipulated their entire history or facing extinction at the hands of entities they couldn't comprehend. Outside the council chambers, automated systems throughout the galaxy continued their awakening. Ancient protocols activated dormant weapons. Hidden installations powered up after millennia of slumber. And in the depths of space, sensors designed by human engineers 50,000 years ago detected movement at the very edge of reality itself. The war they had declared against humanity was over before it began. Now a far older and more terrible war was about to begin. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had extended into its 6th hour when the first reports arrived from the Outer Rim. Commander Jake Harrison stood before the assembled delegates, his weathered face grim as he delivered intelligence that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about the universe itself. 3 hours ago, Observation Post Omega-7 detected a complete stellar extinction event in the Kepler-9 system, Harrison announced, his military bearing commanding attention despite his species' newly revealed status. 5-billion-year-old stars simply stopped existing. No explosion, no collapse, no trace of gravitational effects. They were there, and then they weren't. The holographic display above the chamber showed sensor readings that defied conventional physics. Where the Kepler-9 system should have been, space itself appeared damaged, as if reality had been torn and poorly repaired. Dr. Stone stepped forward to provide scientific context. What you're seeing isn't stellar destruction in any recognizable sense. The quantum signatures suggest dimensional manipulation on a scale that approaches cosmic engineering. The stars weren't destroyed. They were edited out of existence. Chancellor Morvex's massive form trembled as he processed the implications. Around the chamber, delegates who had spent the day learning their entire civilization was built on human foundations now faced the revelation that existence itself was under threat. How is such a thing possible? Asked Delegate Kress, whose insectoid species had mastered quantum mechanics 10,000 years before humans developed written language. Harrison exchanged glances with Dr. Stone before responding. According to our historical records, the Devourers exist in a state of quantum superposition across multiple dimensions. They can manipulate the fundamental forces that hold reality together. When they consume a region of space, they don't just destroy everything in it. They retroactively prevent it from ever having existed. The assembled scientists struggled to comprehend the concept. The idea that past events could be altered on such a scale challenged everything they understood about causality and time. During humanity's first encounter with these entities, Dr. Stone continued, we lost 11 entire galaxies to dimensional erasure. Billions of human worlds, trillions of lives, entire chapters of our civilization's history simply deleted from the timeline. Our historical records contain gaps that we know should be filled, but we can no longer remember what was lost. Ambassador Webb activated additional displays showing Earth's solar system in unprecedented detail. What the gathered delegates had dismissed as primitive industrial development was revealed as the most sophisticated, defensive network ever constructed. The past 50,000 years haven't just been spent monitoring galactic civilization, Webb explained. We've been building weapons capable of fighting entities that exist outside normal space-time. Every manufacturing facility in human space is actually a dimensional anchor designed to reinforce the fabric of reality itself. The projection shifted to show technical specifications that made the most advanced alien engineers lean forward in amazement. Devices that could manipulate quantum fields, weapons that fired concentrated space-time, defensive systems that could create localized alterations in the laws of physics. But individual defensive systems, no matter how advanced, aren't sufficient against devourer assault patterns, Harrison added. Their entities phase between dimensions during attack runs. The only effective defense requires coordinated response across multiple spatial and temporal reference frames. Dr. Stone pulled up tactical projections, showing the galaxy transformed into a vast defensive network. Every hyperspace junction we built contains dimensional stabilizers. Every trade route has been positioned to facilitate rapid military deployment. The governmental structure of the Galactic Council itself was designed to coordinate defense operations across hundreds of species simultaneously. The revelation struck the assembled delegates with mounting horror and awe. Their entire civilization, everything they had built and achieved over 10 millennia, had been unconsciously shaped into a weapon against threats they had never imagined. Delegate Yorth of the Crystalline Consortium raised one gleaming appendage. You're saying our cultures, our technological development, our political structures, everything we consider our own achievements, were designed to serve as components in humanity's war machine? Not war machine, Webb corrected firmly. Survival network. The devourers represent extinction not just for individual species, but for the concept of existence itself. Fighting them requires every advantage we can create, but the civilizations we helped guide were never intended to be expendable assets. You were intended to be partners. Commander Harrison activated a new display showing real-time sensor data from across the galaxy. The dimensional disturbances are accelerating. At current expansion rates, the first devourer entities will manifest in normal space within 14 months. We need full galactic mobilization to have any chance of stopping them. The assembled delegates struggled with the enormity of what they were being asked to accept. Trust the species that had manipulated their entire history. Commit their civilizations to a war against entities they couldn't understand. Risk everything on the word of beings who had hidden their true nature for 50,000 years. Chancellor Morveck spoke for the first time in hours, his voice carrying the weight of impossible decisions. If we agree to this alliance, what guarantees do we have that humanity won't simply resume their ancient dominance once the threat is eliminated? Webb's expression softened slightly, showing genuine emotion for the first time since the crisis began, because 50,000 years ago, we learned something that no other galactic civilization has discovered. Power without purpose leads to stagnation. Dominance without challenge leads to decay. The greatest achievement of our ancient empire wasn't our technology or our territory. It was the decision to step back and let others create their own path. Dr. Stone activated historical records showing humanity's ancient empire at its peak. Vast networks of worlds, technologies that bordered on godlike. Civilizations that had achieved seemingly impossible feats of engineering and science. We could have remained in control, she explained. Our technology was advanced enough to maintain dominance indefinitely. But empires that never face challenges stop growing. Civilizations that never encounter new perspectives stop innovating. We withdrew not from weakness but from wisdom. The displays shifted to show the current galactic community in all its diversity. Hundreds of species contributing unique perspectives, technological innovations, and cultural achievements that had enriched the galaxy beyond anything humanity's empire had accomplished alone. What you've built here, Webb continued, surpasses anything our ancient civilization achieved. The cooperation between species, the peaceful resolution of conflicts, the sharing of knowledge and resources across cultural barriers that should have been insurmountable. This is what we hoped would develop when we stepped aside. Commander Harrison stepped forward with final tactical assessments. The choice before this council is simple but absolute. Unite under human coordination for a war against entities that threaten reality itself, or face extinction as separate, unprepared civilizations. New alarms began sounding throughout the chamber as fresh reports arrived from deep space monitoring stations. The dimensional disturbances were spreading faster than predicted. Reality itself was becoming unstable at the galaxy's edge. "Time is running out," Harrison announced grimly. "Every day of delay gives the Devourers more opportunity to establish dimensional footholds in our reality. We need a decision now." Chancellor Morvex looked around the chamber at delegates representing hundreds of species, thousands of worlds, billions of unique individuals who had built lives and cultures without knowing they existed at the sufferance of hidden guardians. "The vote will be simple," he announced. "Accept alliance with humanity and prepare for war against the Devourers, or maintain our independence and face the consequences alone. All in favor of alliance?" The voting crystals at each delegation station began to glow as representatives of species who had never agreed on anything before faced the ultimate decision. The chamber filled with light as one by one every delegation voted for survival. The vote was unanimous. The real war was about to begin. As emergency protocols activated throughout the galaxy, hidden systems that had slumbered for 50 millennia awakened to their true purpose. Ancient weapons powered up, dimensional stabilizers engaged, and for the first time since humanity's withdrawal from galactic affairs, the full extent of their preparation began to reveal itself. The galaxy had declared war on humanity, only to discover that humanity had been preparing for a much larger war all along. Now both species and their hidden guardians would face the darkness between realities together, as the architects of galactic civilization had always intended. 6 weeks after the unanimous vote for alliance, the galaxy had transformed into something unrecognizable. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood in the command center of the newly revealed human fortress ship Perseverance, watching as representatives from hundreds of species worked, together with a coordination that would have seemed impossible. Just months earlier, the massive vessel had appeared in orbit around the Galactic Council headquarters within hours of the Alliance vote, materializing from what sensors had registered as empty space. Now it served as the central command hub for the largest military operation in galactic history. "Status report from all sectors," Torres commanded, her voice carrying through quantum communication networks that connected every inhabited system in known space. The responses painted a picture of frantic preparation. The Keltharian Syndicate had successfully converted their industrial worlds into weapons manufacturing centers, using human-provided specifications. The Zephyrian Trade Federation's cargo fleets had been retrofitted with dimensional stabilizers. Even the peaceful Aquan colonies had activated dormant defense platforms that had been hidden beneath their ocean floors for millennia. Dr. Stone materialized through holographic projection from her research station in Earth's deep orbit. "Admiral, we've completed analysis of the latest sensor data from the Outer Rim. The dimensional breaches are expanding exponentially. We have confirmed manifestation of advanced devourer entities in 17 systems. The main tactical display shifted to show the galaxy's edge, where reality itself had become a battlefield. Regions of space flickered between existence and void as entities from outside normal dimensions tested the barriers between realities. Commander Harrison joined the briefing from his position aboard the battle station hidden in Saturn's rings. "All species have successfully integrated their military assets with our command structure. Training simulations show remarkable adaptation rates. These civilizations learn faster than we anticipated." Torres nodded with satisfaction. The integration process had been humanity's greatest concern. Teaching hundreds of species to coordinate complex operations against enemies they couldn't fully comprehend required unprecedented cooperation. Chancellor Morvex appeared through the communication network, his massive form now bearing the insignia of the newly formed Galactic Defense Coalition. "Admiral Torres, our combined fleets have successfully established defensive positions at all critical junction points. But morale among our forces is declining as reports from the Outer Rim become more disturbing." The reports were indeed troubling. Entire star systems had begun experiencing temporal anomalies. Planets aged centuries and hours before reverting to their previous states. Space itself occasionally displayed properties that contradicted fundamental laws of physics. The psychological impact of fighting entities that can manipulate causality itself cannot be underestimated, Dr. Stone observed. Our forces need to understand exactly what they're facing, even if that knowledge is terrifying. Torres activated a secured channel that connected her directly to representatives of every major species. All coalition commanders prepare for classified briefing. What I'm about to reveal has been restricted to highest security clearance for 50,000 years. The communication network filled with the faces and forms of the galaxy's finest military minds. Generals whose tactical brilliance had shaped interstellar warfare. Scientists whose discoveries had revolutionized entire fields of knowledge. Leaders whose courage had inspired their species through previous crises. The entity we call the Apex Devourer, Torres began, isn't just another member of their species. It's the collective consciousness that controls all Devourer activity across multiple galactic clusters. According to our ancient records, it exists simultaneously in dozens of dimensions and has been consuming realities for millions of years. The assembled commanders listened in stunned silence as Torres revealed intelligence that challenged their understanding of existence itself. The Apex Devourer wasn't merely a powerful enemy. It was a force of nature that treated entire galaxies as temporary inconveniences. During humanity's first war against the Devourers, she continued, we discovered that the Apex entity learns from each encounter. It adapts its tactics, develops new strategies, and shares that knowledge across all dimensional manifestations. The weapons and defenses that worked against it 50,000 years ago will be useless now. Commander Harrison took over the technical briefing. Our deep space sensors have detected the Apex entity's approach vector. Unlike its advanced forces, this consciousness appears to be moving through normal space-time rather than phasing between dimensions. Our analysis suggests it's testing our defensive capabilities before committing to full-scale assault. Dr. Stone pulled up projections that showed the entity's massive scale. The Apex Devourer exists as a distributed consciousness across approximately 30,000 individual manifestations. Each one is larger than most capital ships and capable of independent tactical decision-making, while remaining connected to the collective intelligence. The tactical implications were staggering. Fighting 30,000 intelligent opponents that shared perfect communication and coordination would strain even the combined resources of the entire galaxy. General Vorth of the Crystalline Consortium asked the question that every commander was thinking. How do we fight something that large and that intelligent? Torres smiled grimly. We don't fight it. We trap it. The strategic display changed to show Earth's solar system, revealing modifications that had been hidden even from humanity's closest allies. The orbital installations weren't just weapons and defensive systems. They were components of the largest engineering project in galactic history. The Sol Containment Grid, Torres announced. 50,000 years of preparation focused on a single goal, creating a localized space-time distortion, powerful enough to trap entities that exist across multiple dimensions. The specifications were beyond anything the assembled commanders had imagined possible, devices that could manipulate the fundamental forces holding reality together. Generators that drew power directly from stellar cores, weapons that could fire concentrated causality itself. The plan is simple in concept, Harrison explained. Draw the Apex Devourer into the Sol system, activate the containment grid, and trap it in a dimensional loop that prevents it from affecting any other reality. Chancellor Morvex's voice carried obvious concern. The energy requirements for such an operation would be enormous. How do you power systems on that scale? Dr. Stone's expression grew somber. By converting matter directly into energy. The containment grid draws power from the complete molecular dissolution of everything within the Sol system, including Earth itself. The communication network fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity's ultimate weapon required the sacrifice of their homeworld and every human being in the solar system. 15 billion people, Torres said quietly. Everyone who chose to remain on Earth and the orbital installations. We'll hold the line until the Apex entity enters the containment field, then activate the grid regardless of our own survival. The alien commanders struggled to process the magnitude of humanity's intended sacrifice. The species that had guided galactic civilization for 50 millennia was prepared to eliminate itself to save the galaxy from destruction. General Crix of the Insectoid Collective spoke for many when he asked, "Why? Why sacrifice yourselves for civilizations you've manipulated and hidden from for thousands of years?" Torres looked directly into the camera, her expression carrying absolute conviction. "Because 50,000 years ago we learned that survival without purpose is meaningless. The greatest achievement of our ancient empire wasn't our technology or our territory. It was recognizing that existence has value only when it creates something worth preserving." She gestured to the displays showing the diverse coalition now working together. "What you've built here surpasses anything humanity accomplished alone. Hundreds of species cooperating instead of competing, knowledge shared instead of hoarded, conflicts resolved through dialogue instead of warfare. This galaxy is worth any sacrifice to preserve." New alarms began sounding as fresh sensor data arrived. From the outer rim, the advanced Devourer forces had begun coordinated assault patterns against the outer defensive lines. Reality distortions were spreading faster than predicted. "All coalition forces to battle stations," Torres commanded. "Phase 1 of the defensive operation begins now. Remember, we don't need to win every engagement. We just need to draw their main force towards Sol." As emergency protocols activated throughout the galaxy, the largest military operation in galactic history began in earnest. Ancient enemies fought side by side. Species that had never communicated began coordinating complex tactical maneuvers. The diversity that had been the galaxy's greatest strength was becoming its ultimate weapon. The war that would determine the fate of reality itself had finally begun. And at its center, 15 billion humans prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice for a galaxy they had learned to love. The final battle began on a Tuesday morning in Earth's eastern hemisphere, though such temporal designations had become meaningless, as reality itself warped under the approaching presence of the apex devourer. Admiral Torres stood in the command center of the Sol defense grid, watching as sensor displays showed space-time distortions that defied every law of physics she had learned. Through the vast windows of the orbital command station, Earth hung below like a blue and green jewel, unaware that this would be its final day. 15 billion humans went about their morning routines, while their planet's surface concealed the most powerful weapons ever conceived, waiting for the moment of ultimate sacrifice. "Contact established with the apex entity," reported Lieutenant Commander Park from his sensor station. "It's manifesting approximately 2 light-years from Sol's edge. Mass readings are off the scale. Whatever this thing is, it's larger than our most extreme projections." Torres nodded grimly. "All coalition forces report in." The communication network filled with confirmations from across the galaxy. General Vorth's crystalline warriors held the line at the Kepler junction. The Aquan deep space fleets had successfully evacuated the last civilian populations from the outer systems. Even species that had been enemies for millennia now fought together against the approaching darkness. Dr. Stone materialized through holographic projection, her image flickering as dimensional distortions interfered with quantum communications. "Admiral, the entity isn't just large. It's complex beyond anything our models predicted. Our sensors are detecting at least 40,000 individual consciousness nodes, all operating in perfect coordination." The tactical display showed an impossible sight. The apex devourer stretched across several light-years of space, its form shifting between dimensions in patterns that hurt to observe directly. It wasn't a single entity but a vast network of interconnected minds that treated reality itself as a disposable resource. Phase 2. Defensive lines have fallen, Commander Harrison reported from his position at the asteroid belt defense stations. "All remaining forces falling back to final positions around Earth. We're drawing it in exactly as planned." Torres felt the weight of galactic history pressing down on her shoulders. Everything humanity had worked toward for 50,000 years came down to the next few hours. Success meant saving the galaxy but erasing humanity from existence. Failure meant the end of everything. "Dr. Stone, status of the Sol containment grid?" "All systems operational," Stone replied, though her voice carried the strain of someone preparing to die for her beliefs. "The dimensional anchors are fully charged. Matter conversion systems are standing by. We can activate on your command." Through the communication network, Torres could see the faces of coalition commanders from across the galaxy, beings who had learned the truth about their civilization's origins. Species who had discovered their entire history was shaped by hidden guardians, civilizations that now watch those guardians prepare for extinction. Chancellor Morvex's massive form appeared on the main display. Admiral Torres, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I must formally request that you reconsider. There has to be another way, some alternative that doesn't require humanity's complete sacrifice. Torres met his gaze with absolute conviction. Chancellor, we've run every simulation, analyzed every possibility. The Apex Devourer can only be contained by a dimensional distortion of sufficient magnitude to trap entities that exist across multiple realities. That requires energy levels that can only be achieved by matter conversion on a stellar scale. The harsh truth hung in the silence that followed. There was no other way. No clever tactics or advanced technology could substitute for the raw power needed to imprison a being that had consumed galaxies. Movement detected in the outer system, Lieutenant Commander Park announced. The Apex entity is approaching Neptune's orbit. Dimensional distortions are affecting local spacetime. We're experiencing temporal displacement effects throughout the system. Torres looked around the command center at the human officers who had chosen to stay for the final mission. Each one could have evacuated to the Coalition fleets. Each one had chosen to remain and ensure the containment grid activated properly. All stations prepare for final phase, she commanded. Dr. Stone, begin preliminary power-up sequence for the dimensional anchors. The command center filled with the harmonic resonance of systems that had been 50,000 years in the making. Throughout Earth's solar system, hidden installations revealed their true purpose. The moon opened like a flower to reveal a massive focusing array. Mars split apart to expose the primary power generators. Even the sun itself began to pulse with artificial rhythms as stellar manipulation systems came online. Admiral? Commander Harrison's voice carried across the communication network. I'm detecting something unexpected. The Apex entity is slowing its approach. It appears to be analyzing our defensive preparations. Dr. Stone's readings confirmed the observation. It's learning. The entity recognizes that we're preparing some kind of trap, but it can't determine the exact nature of the threat. It's being cautious. Torres felt cold dread settling in her stomach. If the Apex Devourer refused to enter the Sol system, their entire strategy would fail. They needed it to come close enough for the containment grid to function effectively. It's testing our responses, she realized, trying to determine our capabilities before committing to engagement. We need to make it believe we're weaker than we actually are. She opened a channel to all Coalition forces. All units execute Deception Protocol Gamma. Make it appear that our defenses are failing. Draw the entity into the inner system. Throughout Sol space, human installations began transmitting false signals indicating system failures and power fluctuations. Defensive platforms went dark. Communication networks displayed signs of collapse. To external sensors, it appeared that humanity's final defenses were crumbling under the Apex entity's approach. The deception worked. The massive consciousness began accelerating toward Earth. Its distributed intelligence convinced that final victory was within reach. Entity now entering Jupiter's orbit, Park reported. Dimensional distortions are intensifying. Local gravity is fluctuating. We're starting to experience causality displacement in some sectors. Torres watched the countdown displays as her species' final gambit approached its culmination. All civilian populations confirm evacuation status. Evacuation complete, confirmed the Planetary Coordination Center. All remaining personnel are essential to grid operation. 15 billion humans ready for final phase. The number struck Torres like a physical blow. 15 billion people, the entire remaining population of humanity's homeworld, choosing to die so that trillions of others across the galaxy might live. Entity has crossed into Earth's orbital zone, Park announced. All dimensional anchors are detecting massive quantum fluctuations. The containment field is ready for activation. Torres looked one final time at the blue planet below, seeing the lights of cities where children played and families gathered for their final evening together. Dr. Stone, activate the Sol containment grid. The response was immediate and catastrophic. Earth's surface erupted with brilliant light as matter conversion systems began their work. The moon dissolved into pure energy that fed the dimensional anchors. Mars collapsed into its component atoms to power the stellar manipulators. Throughout the solar system, the accumulated matter of 50,000 years of human civilization transformed into the raw power needed to trap a cosmic horror. The Apex Devourer found itself caught in a dimensional loop that prevented it from accessing any reality outside the Sol system. Its vast intelligence raged against constraints that made escape impossible, but the mathematics were absolute. The entity that had consumed galaxies was trapped in a prison of warped spacetime that would hold it for eternity. As Earth itself began to dissolve into energy, Torres opened a final communication to the Coalition forces. The containment is stable. The apex entity is permanently trapped. The galaxy is safe. Across known space, billions of beings watched the Sol system collapse into a singularity that would stand as humanity's monument. The species that had guided galactic civilization for 50 millennia had chosen to end their own existence rather than allow cosmic horror to spread. In the aftermath, the Coalition species discovered that humanity's final gift wasn't just the defeat of the Devourers. Hidden in the quantum matrices of every system humans had built were complete records of human history, culture, and knowledge. The Guardians were gone, but their legacy would guide the galaxy forever. The war that began with a judgment against humanity ended with humanity's ultimate judgment on the value of existence itself. They had proven that some things were worth any sacrifice to preserve. The galaxy would remember,